अच्छा चलें ठीक है. Let's start with the first question के इसको पहले जल्दी से करते हैं, फिर एक ATP की भी ट्राई कर लेते हैं. Diagram shows and we can अच्छा diagram shows 4 different methods of collecting gases: downward delivery, gas range, over water, and upward delivery. Which method is suitable for collecting a gas which has the properties described? तो number 1 ये heavy gases के लिए है, ठीक है. So less dense is wrong. Number 2 uh, ये number 2 है. Dense than air. अच्छा, number 2 is for dense than air and soluble in water. Number 2 जो है ये किसी भी गैस के लिए वैसे यूज कर सकते हो. So I'm going to leave number 2 for now at the moment. के number 2 के लिए you don't need any specific properties. Number 3 जो है वो less dense than air and soluble in water. तो number 3 जो है ना over water है, तो it has to be insoluble in water. और फिर number 4 is denser than air. तो number 4 भी गलत है कि this is for heavy gases, sorry light gases. तो denser than air is going to be wrong. तो अगर A, C और D जो है वो wrong है, तो फिर the only option left is B. B correct इसलिए कि B by default correct है. यहाँ पे कुछ भी लिखा होता है, you could use B for any gas. ठीक है, any gas having any properties that could be used for a gas range could be used for that. फिर अगला वाला. After acidification with dilute nitric acid, a colorless solution X with aqueous silver nitrate is added and a white precipitate is formed. Remember, this is a test for Cl-1 ions. ठीक है. और what he's saying is, तो iodide is automatically wrong. ये बल्कि मैं खोल लेता हूँ ताकि वो टेस्ट रिवाइज भी हो जाए. कहाँ पे, एक सेकेंड. ठीक है, this one. अच्छा, so test for anions. Cl-1 nitric acid, silver nitrate add करो, you get a white precipitate. Br-1 same test, cream precipitate. I-1 same test, but you get a yellow precipitate. तो इस केस में white precipitate है, तो iodide तो वैसे ही निकल गया इस वजह से. Now the option that you have is, do you go for copper 2 chloride or do you go for sodium chloride? तो colorless solution है. मुझे बताओ कौन सा होगा फिर इन दोनों में से? Which one is going to be the correct one?
Sodium.
ठीक है, सोडियम इज गोइंग टू बी करेक्ट क्योंकि कॉपर जो है ट्रांजिशन मेटल्स दे हैव कलर्ड कंपाउंड्स, उनके सॉल्यूशंस भी ना कलर्ड होते हैं. सो ट्रांजिशन मेटल इज गोइंग टू बी, इट शुडंट हैव अ ट्रांजिशन मेटल. फिर नंबर 3, आरएफ वैल्यू क्या है कि उससे क्या है कि उससे डायग्राम रिप्रेजेंट्स क्रोमेटोग्राम ऑफ द कलरलेस एसिड्स प्रेजेंट इन अ ड्रिंक. तो उसने आरएफ 3 डिफरेंट वो है सब्सटेंसेस. तो which acids are present in the drink and RF values are given. अच्छा, first thing number 1. अच्छा, how would you can either use a ruler. RF value क्या होती है? Distance traveled by the dye. So this is the tiny distance that's traveled by dye number 1. Divided by the distance traveled by the solvent. ये सारा ऊपर से लेके नीचे तक. तो मुझे बताओ कि approximate value. What would be, मतलब क्या value होगी dye 1 की approximate value? Without using a ruler, can you guess what is the value?
Less than 2.5.
0.6.
0 point नहीं, ये क्या होगा अगर मैं वैसे लगाऊं कि डिस्टेंस ट्रैवल बाय डाई कितना होगा अप्रॉक्सीमेटली लेट्स से 1 सेंटीमीटर. तो उसके मुकाबले में ये जो पूरा डिस्टेंस ट्रैवल हो रहा है दैट वुड बी अराउंड आई थिंक 8 सेंटीमीटर्स. वरना रूलर रख के मेजर करना है. तो 1/8
It
व्हिच
is
इज
it is
हाउ
5
मच.
centimeter.
हम्म.
It is 5 centimeter the total distance solvent front till solvent front.
नहीं उसने कहीं लिखा हुआ है.
No sir, I have measured it with a scale.
अच्छा ठीक है, स्केल से मेजर किया. अच्छा, यहाँ पे वैल्यूज वैसे काफी क्लोज हैं. यू हैव टू मेजर इट विद अ स्केल. खैर इसके ऊपर स्केल के साथ लेके आए. ऐसा स्केल लेके आ सकते हैं. जस्ट 1 सेकेंड, इसको कर लेते हैं क्योंकि वो दूसरा बोर्ड है उसके अंदर तीनों के हम एग्जैक्ट निकाल लेते हैं. वेट सेकेंड, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट इसके अंदर स्केल होता है. जस्ट 1 सेकेंड. अच्छा यहाँ पे आ गए. अच्छा, सो वी हैव अ स्केल और स्केल को रख लेते हैं साथ. अब इसकी मुझे वो भी नहीं पता ग्रेजुएशन की है. अच्छा, इसको साथ रख लेते हैं जस्ट फॉर, और ये काउंट कर लेते हैं, डैशेस काउंट कर लेते हैं. ठीक है, सो दैट्स प्रॉब्ली कितना होगा 1 2 3 और 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18. तो 18 पूरी लेंथ आ रही है, 18 ग्रेजुएशन आ रही है. 3/18 मेरा आ रहा है. ठीक है, फॉर द फर्स्ट वन. बट डाई 1 डिस्टेंस ट्रैवल बाय द होल सॉल्वेंट डिवाइड बाय द डिस्टेंस ट्रैवल बाय द वो तीसरे नंबर पे है. ठीक है, तो 3/18. सो 3/18 व्हाट इज द वैल्यू? 3/18 क्या बनता है?
0.167.
अच्छा, तो फिर वो डाई 1 जो होगी वो फिर सिट्रिक एसिड होगी. और ये ऑब्वियसली रफ होगा. ठीक है, मैंने कॉपी पेस्ट किया, आई डोंट नो. तो डाई 1 वुड बी सिट्रिक एसिड, तो 1 और 2 में से ऑप्शन होगा. डाई 2 क्या होगी? डाई 2 वुड बी स्लाइटली ग्रेटर देन दैट. तो 0.23 होगी. और फिर लेकिन खैर रूलर से कर लो. ठीक है, यू गेट द आइडिया. यू कैन ट्राई दिस डूइंग दिस ऑन अ रूलर. स्केल से करोगे खुद ही वो उससे ज्यादा क्लियर होगा. लेकिन चलो वो पता लग गया ना कि किस तरह करना है. क्यों आई डोंट थिंक इस तरह कॉपी पेस्ट करने से विल गेट द राइट आंसर. क्लियर है? वी मूविंग ऑन. ठीक है, इस क्वेश्चन को रूलर रख के कर लें. जस्ट रिमेंबर व्हाट आरएफ वैल्यू इज. अच्छा, next is which gas will diffuse at the fastest rate at the same temperature and pressure. तो fastest वो होगी जो lightest होगी. और इन सारों में I think argon और fluorine के अंदर है. Argon is नहीं, argon is pretty heavy, it's 38. Fluorine, answer would be fluorine. नहीं, fluorine भी, argon and fluorine F2 का molecule है. Just a second. 19 and 19, that's 38 and argon is 40. ठीक है, fluorine ही है. Next one is two particles K plus 1 and AR can be written as this. Which statement of these particles is correct? So AR has more neutrons than K plus 1. So neutrons 39. दोनों के पास they have, it does have more neutrons क्योंकि इसके 22 है. And over here it's I think 20. So AR has more neutrons. That statement is correct. K has more nucleons. वो गलत है. Nucleons is the total number of which is 39. और बाकी सारे गलत हैं. ठीक है. The next one, uh, question number 6. A mineral deposit is found to contain small grains made entirely of the element carbon. Which property will definitely be true of the grains of carbon? So there's a mineral and it contains carbon, only carbon, I think. Um, so they will be made of atoms arranged in layers. Okay, they'll be made up. So he's talking about the grains. So that they will be soft. So which property will definitely be true? अब ये कार्बन किस फॉर्म है? कार्बन could be in the form of small grains. मतलब diamond is a possibility. Graphite is a possibility. तो और भी बहुत सारी फॉर्म्स होती हैं कार्बन की, ठीक है? But graphite and diamond are the two common forms. Graphite and diamond have completely different properties. Diamond is pretty strong. Graphite is pretty soft. Graphite is made up of layers, and diamond has a tetrahedral structure, three-dimensional tetrahedral structure where each carbon atom is making 4 bonds. So उस केस में ना each carbon atom is making 4 bonds with 4 other carbon atoms, and it just keeps on going. Okay, every time a carbon makes 4 other bonds, so it's a three-dimensional structure with pretty strong bonds. Graphite के case में it's a hexagonal structure where each carbon atom is making just 3 bonds, and the fourth electron is busy conducting electricity, and it's a layered structure. So which property would be correct? Would definitely be correct. What would be the answer?
Option C.
ठीक है, ऑप्शन सी, क्योंकि इन बाकी के बारे में you're not sure क्योंकि one of them conducts electricity, graphite conducts, diamond doesn't. They'll be soft. Diamond is not soft. Graphite is soft. They'll be arranged in layers. Graphite is arranged in layers. Diamond is not. So C is if you burn them, they're going to produce carbon dioxide. That would always be correct. Which diagram shows the outer electron arrangement in calcium fluoride? So first thing, is it covalent or ionic?
Ionic.
Covalent.
नहीं, ionic है, metal and non-metal. ठीक है, तो metal electron lose करता है, non-metal electron gain करता है, और it's going to be C. ठीक है, calcium would lose 2 electrons because it's in group 2, and fluorine would need 1 electron. तो एक इसको मिलेगा, एक इसको मिलेगा. This would be -1, this would be 2 plus. Next one is how many shared pair of electrons are there in one carbon dioxide molecule? तो इसमें carbon makes 4 bonds, group 4 में, तो oxygen makes 2 bonds. ठीक है, no need to draw the dot and cross diagram. Structural formula से काम चलाया करो. Carbon is 4 bonds, दो इधर बनाए, oxygen की भी bonding complete है. Each dash represents 2 electrons, so that's 4 electrons over here being shared and 4 electrons being shared over here. So total electrons shared कितने हैं? That's 8 electrons. Now, so it's 8 electrons. But the thing is, he's not talking about electrons, he's talking about pairs of electrons. So that's 4 pair of electrons being shared. तो आंसर बी होगा इसका. ठीक है, although 8 electrons are being shared, लेकिन the statement was how many shared pairs of electrons are there? So you have to count the pairs of electrons. That's 1 pair of electron being shared, 2 pairs, 3 pairs, and 4 pairs. Next is two statement about metals are given. Metals contain a lattice of negative ions in a sea of electrons, which is wrong because metals like to lose electrons, and all metals, they have a regular arrangement, a lattice of positive metal ions with the lost electrons just roaming around, delocalized mobile electrons. The electrical conductivity of metals is related to the mobility of electrons in the structure. And that statement is true because the electrons are mobile, which is why they're able to conduct electricity. So which is correct? Both statements are correct. No, both statements are not correct. Statement 1 is correct. That's wrong. Statement 2 is correct. So D is correct. उसके बाद है कि this powdered calcium carbonate reacts with hydrochloric acid to produce. So you have to उससे क्या write the ionic equation. तो हम start से कर लेते हैं. How do you पूरा लिख लेते हैं कि how do you actually come up with the ionic equation? तो ये calcium carbonate plus hydrochloric acid यहाँ पे लिख लेते हैं. इसको हटा देते हैं. अच्छा, calcium carbonate plus. So I'll just quickly go over the steps. Salt किस तरह बनती है? Get rid of the H. उसकी जगह there would be Cl. Calcium is 2 plus Cl is minus 1. So it's going to be CaCl2 plus H2O plus CO2. And that's your balanced equation. ठीक है, that's your balanced equation. अब ionic equation. How do you write the ionic equation? उसमें step 1 होता है कि you write the states. Calcium carbonate, remember, is insoluble. It's a solid. ठीक है, हमारे पास we have the solubility table open somewhere. इस sheet के अंदर यहाँ पे ना you can have a look and you can see कि carbonates कहाँ पे. All carbonates and phosphate salts are insoluble except those belonging to group 1. So group 1 is soluble, but otherwise they are insoluble. So calcium carbonate is a solid and HCl is an acid. It's always aqueous. Chlorides, most of them are aqueous except for silver and lead. And H2O is a liquid and CO2 is a gas. So any equation that you have, the next step would be कि you would कोई भी चीज aqueous होगी ना and it has ions, तो उसके ions scattered होते हैं water के अंदर. Calcium carbonate is a solid, so its ions would be together in solid state, but HCl would be in dissociated form. But in aqueous state, the ions of HCl would all be separate and they would all be just roaming around randomly. As a similarly, calcium chloride is also aqueous. So that means its ions would also be dissociated. So calcium chloride contains two ions, calcium and Cl ions. And all of them would be scattered in solution. Plus there's going to be H2O liquid and CO2 that is in gaseous state. Or which one is the spectator ion in this case?
Fluoride.
Okay, the ions that don't do anything remain unchanged. Those are spectator ions. And the remaining equation is your ionic equation. Okay, rest of them, they are taking part in the reaction. H plus 1, there's no H plus 1 away on the right side. So इसका मतलब है कि it took part in the reaction. अच्छा, so this is your ionic equation, calcium carbonate plus 2H plus 1. So calcium carbonate solid plus 2H plus 1. So I think it's D. Okay, this is what we are getting. अच्छा, next is which mass of carbon dioxide contains the same number of atoms as 16 grams of sulfur? पहले तो moles निकालो इसमें. How do you find moles? Moles is mass divided by mr. Sulfur के case में it's going to be AR. Sulfur is just 32, so it's 0.5 moles. So you're looking at now. There's a slight अच्छा क्या उससे 0.5 moles. तो वो देख रहे हैं कि mass of carbon. So apply the same formula. Moles पता है कितने moles होने चाहिए? 0.5 moles. Moles is mass divided by. Now mass is what you're looking for. Or AR आप carbon की निकालो क्योंकि you're looking for carbon having the same number of moles. So carbon is 12. So what's 12 into 0.5? That's 6 grams. So the answer is going to be B. ठीक है. फिर next one, 12. 3 dm cube of sulfur dioxide is reacted with 2 dm cube of oxygen. Assuming the reaction, now this is a very important question. Okay, you don't usually get a moles question like this. So assuming the reaction goes to completion, that all gases are at room temperature and pressure, what volume of sulfur trioxide is found? So now remember first thing, it's a question of limiting excess. Plus, you must know that for gases only. For gases, you don't actually have to calculate moles. Okay, you don't have to go into the details. You don't have to use the formula. Although you'll get the same answer if you use the formulas as well. But for gases, remember that mole ratio and volume ratio, that's exactly the same. तो इसका मतलब है कि if you have 3 dm cube of SO2, मुझे बताओ कि according to the ratio, how much oxygen would be used? क्या होगा? 2:1 है तो 3 dm cube. How much oxygen would be used according to the ratio?
1.5.
ठीक है, it's going to be 1.5 dm cube. Remember, no need to actually try and find the moles. ये चीज याद रखना कि gases के लिए specifically, the volume ratio in which they react is the same as the mole ratio in which they react. So you don't actually have to go into moles. And so what we figured out was that oxygen was in excess. क्योंकि 2 dm cube is more than the required amount. तो आप हमेशा limiting reactant use करके question solve करते हो, ठीक है? Remember, जो excess वाला number होता है, that's never used in the calculation because it's more than the required amount. Uh, that amount is not being used in the reaction. You never use that. So 3 dm cube is going to react with 1.5 dm cube, and according to the ratio, it's going to produce 3 dm cube of SO3, and that's going to be your answer. Okay, what volume of sulfur trioxide? ठीक है, so it's a very simple question. मोल्स में जाओगे तो फिर वो लेंथी हो जाएगा कि आप मोल्स निकालो इसके, फिर उसके मोल्स निकालो. लिमिटिंग और एक्सेस का पता होना चाहिए कि which one is the limiting. Use always the limiting. ये जो ऑक्सीजन है ना, this would not be used in the calculation because that's in excess. ये क्लियर है सारों को?
सर एक दफा 1.5 बता दें कैसे आया?
नहीं, वो तो 2:1 है ना. 2:1 मतलब 2 सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड और 1 O2 रिएक्ट करता है ना. तो if it's 2:1 तो 3 would react with what? 1.5. मतलब या तो explicitly रेशियो लगा लो ना. 2 reacts with 1 तो 3 कितने के साथ रिएक्ट करेगा? X क्रॉस मल्टीप्लाई करो, you'll get 1.5. डू क्लियर है?
यस सर.
अच्छा, इसके बाद next one is a sample of magnesium hydroxide is made by an excess of aqueous sodium hydroxide to an aqueous solution containing magnesium sulfate, or what is the percentage yield of magnesium hydroxide? Yield का question आ गया. पहले तो वो सबसे पहला काम, ठीक है. The first thing is you have to come up with an equation. So excess of aqueous sodium hydroxide to aqueous solution containing magnesium sulfate. So MgSO4 and NaOH, what is the reaction? So MgSO4 plus NaOH. So now the thing is, this is an ionic precipitation reaction. Because there's no reaction, the salt reacting with a base. Okay, that's not a reaction. Lekin since both of them are aqueous, और remember ionic precipitation का ख्याल रखना कि एक दफा वो make sure you, अच्छा, so both of them are aqueous. So what happens is कि aqueous state के अंदर the ions dissociate. So you would have Mg2 plus roaming around, you would have SO4 2 minus roaming around, and you would have Na plus 1, and you would have OH ions. ठीक है, ये वैसे ionic precipitation revise करा रहा हूँ. In ionic precipitation, you just mix two random things, completely random things that are not supposed to react, but they should be, they are aqueous. So unke ions that they get scattered in water, and the ions mix up. And when the ions mix up, so if the ions get together to form something that's insoluble, which in this case happens, they form MgOH2. Okay, they end up forming MgOH2, which is an insoluble precipitate. तो आपके solution में से ना ये दोनों ions remove हो जाएंगे, and they would form a precipitate, a solid that would sit at the bottom. Okay, that's your MgOH2 solid. Meanwhile, Na and SO4, they would remain part of the solution because they are soluble. So they would remain scattered in the solution. Once you've made the equation, though, you have to balance it. So OH is 2, so there's going to be 2 NaOH. And that's pretty much about it. Okay, that's balanced. You just have to put a 2 over here. Question, what is he asking in the question? He's asking Okay, there's 1.2 grams of MgSO4 reacting, right? So 1.2 grams of this, of MgSO4. We get, or say he's asking about the yield of MgOH2. What we can do is we can find, ये excess में था, ठीक है? This was an excess. So you don't use excess moles. हमेशा you use the limiting reactant moles. So moles would be 1.2 divided by. Can somebody do the calculation quickly? SO4 is 96. 32 plus 16 into 4, ठीक है, that's 96 plus 96 plus mg is 24. So probably 112 or what? 116, I think. Find the moles. Tell me what the moles are.
0.01.
0.01. That's a 0.01 moles are in. Okay, so you're getting 0.01 moles of this. So in UH2 के moles क्या होंगे? The same ratio. It's going to be 0.01 moles as well. Now you're going to find the mass of MgOH2. Mass would be moles multiplied by the MR. ठीक है, paper MR क्या होगी? That's going to be OH twice. That's 34, I think. 16 plus 1 into 2. That's 34. Plus there's Mg. That's 24. तो क्या mass आ रही है?
0.58.
0. So you're getting 0.58 grams.
Yes.
So now 0.58 grams is your theoretical value. ठीक है, what's theoretical value? That means the one that's मतलब इसका reality से कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है. It's the one जो आपने सिर्फ you just calculated on paper. और जब आप actually जाके reaction करोगे, it's going to be different, and that's going to be your actual or experimental value. So if we go back to, he's told us that the mass of magnesium hydroxide formed is 0.26 grams. So he's told us the actual value, ठीक है, and that is 0.26 grams. तो yield का क्या फॉर्मूला होता है? yield का फॉर्मूला होता है और percentage yield का, that is actual, which is 0.26 grams, divided by the theoretical, which comes out to be 0.58 grams, into 100. So what do we get?
44.8.
We're getting 44.8%, and that's going to be our answer. Okay, it's going to be C. Okay, so the answer is C. So next one is, you clear? No clear? Numera, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
As the next one is, when concentrated sodium chloride is electrolyzed using inert electrodes, which product is formed at cathode and which product is formed at anode? So concentrated NaCl के electrolysis जल्दी से कर लेते हैं. अच्छा, कौन से आयन्स होंगे concentrated NaCl में?
HOH and H and Cl.
नहीं, Na+1, Cl-1.
OH minus 1 and H plus.
ठीक है. इधर कैथोड के ऊपर नेगेटिव वाली साइड पे इलेक्ट्रॉन्स आर गोइंग टू बी गेन्ड बाय वन ऑफ देम. ठीक है, और कौन गेन करता है? द वन दैट्स लोअर डाउन इन द रिएक्टिविटी सीरीज. सो व्हिच वन इज द वन दैट्स
Hydrogen.
ठीक है, दैट्स हाइड्रोजन. सो इट्स गोइंग टू बी इक्वेशन क्या होगी? इट्स डायटोमिक, सो डबल कर लो. 2H+1 would gain 2 electrons and they would form an H2 gas molecule. अच्छा, दूसरी साइड पे although the series जो सीरीज दी होती है एनोड पे, दैट्स I-1, Br-1 and OH-1 and Cl-1 and the rest of the negative ions, right? लेकिन it's concentrated NaCl. तो concentrated NaCl में हमेशा कौन सा आयन सिलेक्ट करते हैं?
Chlorine.
Yeah, it's always going to be chlorine that's going to be selected. तो और वो भी diatomic, so double कर लो, पहले double कर लो, 2Cl-1, and they would lose 2 electrons to form a Cl2 molecule. And those are your two equations. Observations क्या होंगी? You're going to see bubbles of gas, effervescence. इधर भी bubbles of gas होंगे, लेकिन it's going to be a greenish yellow gas. इधर से H चला जाएगा, इधर से Cl चला जाएगा, and your solution is going to become alkaline, क्योंकि what would remain in the solution, that's going to be NaOH. ठीक है? खैर ये सब उसने नहीं मांगा था क्वेश्चन में, बस ये मांगा था कि कैथोड पे कौन सा प्रोडक्ट होगा, it's going to be hydrogen, and anode पे it's going to be chlorine. फिर अगले में वो कह रहे हैं कि which negative ions are present in aqueous copper 2 sulfate. कौन कौन से आयंस होंगे?
Sulfate and hydroxide.
ठीक है, तो Cu2 plus H+1 positive ions होंगे, and OH ions and SO4 minus 2 ions are going to be your negative ions. अच्छा, then you have diagram shows the energy profile of a chemical reaction. जल्दी से बताओ कि ये क्या है, endothermic या exothermic?
Endothermic.
Endo.
ठीक है, this is endothermic because your products are gaining energy. ठीक है, so they become more energetic, they gain energy, it's endothermic. Endothermic in the forward direction. अगर वापस उल्टा आ रहे हो ना, तो say the reaction is endothermic in the forward direction, so it's going to be these two. ठीक है, forward में endo है. अच्छा, the reaction with ये क्या कह रहा है? अच्छा, the reaction with greater activation energy. So what is the activation energy in the forward direction? Activation energy is the energy that is needed at the start of the reaction. So this is your activation energy, that's EA. Why do they need energy at the start of the reaction? Because every reaction you have to break the old bonds. So to break the old bonds, you need energy to start the reaction. अच्छा, vice versa. अगर हम backward की बात करें, ठीक है, the opposite, going from products back to reactants. तो let's say product से आप वापस जा रहे हो reactant के ऊपर, तो this would be your activation energy. ठीक है, that's going to be for the reverse reaction. क्योंकि यहाँ से वापस जाने के लिए ना, you have to climb this, you have to gain a bit of energy, and then you have to lose energy. So which one is greater? It's the forward one. ठीक है, the reaction with greater activation energy, that's the forward one. Hence D is going to be your answer. ये भी clear है?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, अब ये कि अच्छा, compounds given है, और वो ये कह रहा है कि अच्छा, for these compounds, 1 second. So you're given these compounds, and we'll carry which compound releases the least energy when 1 gram is completely burnt. Achha, now remember, he's talking about 1 gram. अब इसमें दो तीन चीजों का ख्याल रखना है 1 ग्राम के उससे क्या per mole. ये जो एनर्जी है ना, that's for 1 mole. Per mole का मतलब है that's for 1 mole. अच्छा, मोल का मतलब क्या होता है? मोल, if now we're dealing with 1 mole, ठीक है, एनर्जी चेंजेस for 1 mole है, ठीक है. For 1 mole. अब अगर मैं moles is equal to mass डिवाइड बाय mr, अगर लेट्स से फॉर्मूला यूज करूं और मोल्स की जगह 1 पुट करूं, तो माय मास इज बेसिकली गोइंग टू बी इक्वल टू द mr. अच्छा, रिमेंबर कि 1 मोल की जो मास होगी, दैट्स बेसिकली योर mr. वन मोल इज बेसिकली उसकी जो मास होगी ना, दैट्स mr एक्सप्रेस्ड इन ग्राम्स. तो फॉर एग्जांपल अगर उसने दिया हुआ ना -3270 किलो जूल्स पर मोल, तो दैट्स फॉर 78 ग्राम्स ऑफ बेंजीन बर्निंग, ठीक है. इफ ही हैज गिवन यू -4800 किलो जूल्स पर मोल, तो वो 1 मोल के लिए 1 मोल, व्हाट इज द मास ऑफ 1 मोल? दैट्स 100 ग्राम्स. mr एक्सप्रेस्ड इन ग्राम्स. minus 55 10 दिया हुआ है, so that's 114 grams. उसको burn कर रहे हैं, ठीक है? And if it's minus 2200, then it's 44 grams that's being burned. So remember this कि it's कि 1 मोल की जब भी वो बात करेंगे ना, 1 मोल की जो मास होती है ना, दैट्स बेसिकली दी एमआर. कि अगर कोई कहता है 1 मोल सोडियम है तो उसका मतलब है उसकी मास क्या होगी, 23 ग्राम्स होगी. तो अगर वो फ्यूल की बात कर रहा है कि वो 1 मोल फ्यूल बर्न करो, ये एनर्जी रिलीज हो रही है, तो व्हाट्स द मास ऑफ द फ्यूल? इट्स गोइंग टू बी द एमआर एक्सप्रेशन इन ग्राम्स, ठीक है? नाउ यू हैव टू फाइंड इट फॉर 1 ग्राम. तो व्हाट इज द नेक्स्ट स्टेप दैट यू शुड डू? क्या
Look
करना
for
चाहिए?
the enthalpy change, the least.
हाँ, लेकिन 1 ग्राम के लिए ना, तो पहले तो इनको इन सारों को डिवाइड करना. 3270 should be divided by 78 grams, right? तब जाके वो पर ग्राम निकलेगी ना 1 ग्राम के लिए, क्योंकि this is for 78 grams, not for 1 gram. तो 1 ग्राम के लिए सारों को निकालो, minus 4800 divide by 100, minus 5510 and divide by 114, and you have minus 2200, divide that by 44. तो पहले तो rough estimate, can you do a rough estimate for this? यानी किनको हम जल्दी से eliminate कर सकते हैं? I think first and the last they can be eliminated quickly. इन दोनों में से होगा probably.
So the first one is minus 41.9. The second is minus 48. And the third one is minus 38.2. And the last one is minus 50.
So third one हो गया ना, octane. ठीक है, octane is going to be your answer, right? कि per
Okay,
gram
sir.
ये मतलब वही है ना, least उसने क्या है ना, the least energy that's released per gram. ठीक है?
So the third one is minus 48.3, sorry.
The third one तो फिर least नहीं है.
It would be then,
first one?
yes.
It's the first one, it's benzene, ठीक है? So not this A. देखिए, clear है question?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा. An experiment is carried out to measure the rate of reaction between magnesium and dilute hydrochloric acid under two different conditions. The mass of magnesium and the number of moles of hydrochloric acid are the same. तो उसने कहा कि moles वगैरह सब कुछ same है. Magnesium and hydrochloric acid. पहले तो बताओ इन दोनों में से which one is the faster reaction?
1.
ठीक है, 1 is your faster reaction. The volume of gas produce हो रही है. ठीक है, metal plus acid is going to produce hydrogen gas. तो 1 जो है that's much steeper, ठीक है? जो steep होता है that's the faster reaction. Remember gradient जो होता है ना if you plot any change with respect to time, gradient is basically a measure of the rate of the reaction. अगर gradient बिल्कुल flat है, that means no change is happening. ठीक है, that means no reaction is happening. अगर gradient rise कर रहा है, तो that means reaction is happening very fast. So the graph 1 results are obtained at a higher temperature, which is true. ठीक है, मतलब उसमें कुछ गलत नहीं है कि graph 1 is going to be obtained at a higher temperature. Why? Because at higher temperature the reaction is fast. Graph 1 results are obtained by using hydrochloric acid that is more concentrated. So sounds good enough क्योंकि concentrated होगा तो reaction ज़्यादा fast होगा. As a graph 1 results are obtained using smaller pieces of magnesium. Is this correct?
No.
Yes, it is.
It is correct.
Yes.
क्योंकि smaller pieces use करोगे, powdered use करोगे, तो reaction is going to be faster because you have a greater surface area. तो तीनों correct हैं. So it's going to be A. अच्छा, अगला वाला कि there's this hydrogen peroxide decomposes slowly at room temperature, and the reaction is catalyzed. There's a catalyst added, And the diagram shows the apparatus that can be used to monitor the rate of the reaction. So probably oxygen gas बन रही है तो वो उसको collect कर रहा है, ठीक है? There's a catalyst added. Remember, catalyst added. Which statement is correct when a catalyst is added to aqueous H2O2? Um, Now, what does a catalyst do? It does not increase the activation energy. It actually decreases it. The catalyst is not used up in the reaction, TK. It remains completely unchanged. Then you have the gas syringe fills up more quickly when the catalyst is added. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
TK, fast reaction है तो fast में there's going to be more gas produced, and so it's going to fill up. The total amount of oxygen produced increases when the catalyst is added. No, because you still have the same reaction. You just have it just happens with more quickly. That's it. So the amount does not change. As a reduction can be defined in terms of the gain or loss of oxygen or of hydrogen or of electrons. तो कोई मुझे बताए reduction oxygen gain या loss?
Loss.
ठीक है. And what about hydrogen? Gain of hydrogen or loss of hydrogen?
Gain of hydrogen.
ठीक है. Electrons भी gain होते हैं. अच्छा, remember कि अगर if somebody is going to ask you about reduction and its definition, तो हमेशा in terms of electrons देना है. ठीक है. It's the gain of electrons. ये ऑक्सीजन और हाइड्रोजन जो है ना उसके अंदर दे सकते हो, लेकिन इट्स उसकी जो बाय डेफिनेशन इट्स अ गेन ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स. अच्छा, why is ethanoic acid described as a weak acid? It is an organic acid. Kind of makes sense because all organic acids are weak acids. लेकिन what's the main reason? How do you define what a weak acid is?
It is slightly dissolved.
Slightly dissociates in water, right? That is by definition what a weak acid is. Partially ionizes or slightly ionizes. It doesn't produce a lot of H+1 ions. Ethanoic acid क्या होगा वैसे? Eth is 2 carbon atoms, so that's double bond O. That's a carboxylic acid, और इसके साथ 3 H होंगे. ठीक है, that's ethanoic acid, and it's going to ionize. So when it ionizes, it's going to produce हमेशा ethanoic acid का ना ये जो end वाला H नहीं है, OH वाला, that's the one that breaks off. I mean, the other way to write ethanoic acid is using the general formula, which is going to give you CH3COOH, which is the same as above. It's going to ionize. और हमेशा याद रखना, for a weak acid, you put a reversible sign. Because it's not going to do a lot of forward reaction. It won't produce a lot of H+1 ions. But if you have 100 molecules, तो उनमें से ना एक आध H+1 ion produce होगा. As the next one is, what is the best method to prepare a sample of silver chloride? तो ये भी बैठ के रिवाइज कर लेते हैं. किस तरह बनाओगे silver chloride? Salt preparation. Now you're supposed to make AgCl, but AgCl is an insoluble salt. पहले तो कोई मुझे जल्दी से बताए कि what is the method that's used for salt preparation for an insoluble salt?
Sir, metal plus acid.
नहीं, मैं मेथड की बात कर रहा, मैं रिएक्शन की बात नहीं कर रहा. Insoluble salt 3 methods हैं. Excess है, titration है, और ionic precipitation है. तो anyone?
Excess.
नहीं, excess नहीं है, मतलब बता देता हूँ. Ionic precipitation. Insoluble salt is always going to be produced using ionic precipitation. ठीक है, ionic precipitation यूज करते हैं insoluble salt के लिए. Soluble salt के लिए आपके पास दो होते हैं. One is titration. Titration में होता है कि जब इक्वेशन के अंदर हर चीज soluble होती है, ठीक है, that's titration. और soluble salt का जो second method होता है, that's excess method. उसके अंदर होता है कि salt तो soluble ही होती है, लेकिन वो जो reactant होता है ना, that one of the reactants is insoluble. और अगर salt insoluble है, तो the only method that's going to be used is going to be ionic precipitation. Now, ionic precipitation के अंदर what do you do? What you do is you mix two things. AgCl बनाना है. So the rule is you mix two things, and one of the things should contain one of the ions, जैसा AgCl बनाना है ना, so one of the substance should contain silver ions and the other substance should contain Cl ions. There could be any substance, ठीक है, any two random substances, we don't care. You're going to pick two substances, one should contain silver ions and the other one should contain Cl ions, and the second condition is that they have to be soluble. So silver nitrate, let's pick silver nitrate. That's probably the only silver compound that I know that's soluble. And for Cl, plenty of options. It could be NaCl, it could be KCl, it could be HCl, it could be anything that is soluble. So those substances pick करते हैं, and they have to be soluble and they should contain an ion each. अच्छा, अब क्या होगा कि because they are, अच्छा, so just one second, इसको सही करना है. अच्छा, so because they are soluble, the solution के अंदर they would dissociate into ions, Ag plus 1, there's going to be NO3 minus 1, they're all roaming around freely in water, ठीक है, they're mixed in water. पूरा lattice जो है ना वो dissociate हो गया, they're scattered. And these two would get together, ठीक है, the ions would randomly combine, but these two, if they combine, they would form a solid AgCl precipitate. क्योंकि AgCl is not soluble. So since it's not soluble, so it would be removed from, it would automatically get removed from the solution because it would end up forming a precipitate. Na and NO3 would remain part of the solution because they are soluble. So they wouldn't form a precipitate. They would remain dissociated inside water. तो ये आपके पास ना salt preparation होगी AgCl. और इसका मेथड क्या होता है? इसका मेथड सिंपल है, इसकी डिस्क्रिप्शन जो है that's very simple. कि what you have to do in the description is कि simply दोनों को पकड़ो. One second. अच्छा, what you have to do in the description is कि आप दोनों को लो, mix करो, and once the precipitate is formed, you just filter out the precipitate and wash it in distilled water and just dry it in sunlight. That's it. ये clear है सारों को?
Yes, sir.
So D is the correct answer, ठीक है? अच्छा, remember कि it's not necessary that it should be sodium chloride, it could be any chloride as long as it's soluble. अच्छा, अब अगला nitrogenous fertilizers, urea fertilizer क्या होता है? Fertilizers are salts that contain N, P and or K, any of the three. तीनों हो जाए, that's good enough, but any of the three, that's fine. Plus the other thing is it has to be soluble. ठीक है, so this one has to be soluble as well. Now just one second. I said now the other thing is कि fertilizer की उसने एक question moles के ऊपर था कि which percentage by mass of nitrogen does it contain? So how do you find that? It contains 2 nitrogen, so that's 14 into 2 divided by the total mass. What's the total mass? That's 14 into 2 plus there's 1 carbon, that's 12, plus there is an oxygen, so that's 16, plus there are 4 hydrogens, so that's plus 4, and into 100 कर लो. तो इसका निकालो कि क्या बन रहा है? That's 28 divided by नीचे क्या हो रहा है? That's 20 plus 12, that's what's 20 plus 12? That's 32. 32 plus 28, that's 60, I think.
Yes, sir.
Into 100. So I guess it's नहीं कौन सा होगा? 46.7.
Yes, sir. 46.7.
ठीक है, so this comes out to be 46.7. So next one, Haber process, ठीक है, Haber process का सब कुछ दिया हुआ है, although उसके ऊपर बल्कि उसने दिया हुआ है, क्वेश्चन दिया हुआ है. Haber process के अंदर the 3 conditions. What are the 3 conditions? Okay, the temperature should be 450. The pressure should be 200 atmospheres. The और क्या होना चाहिए? The catalyst is Fe is the catalyst. So these three conditions are important. You have to remember those conditions. Uh, उसके अंदर nitrogen कहाँ से आता है? You get it from fractional distillation of liquid air. Where do you get hydrogen? You either get it from electrolysis of water or more importantly from cracking of oil. तो ये इसकी conditions है. और ammonia के uses क्या होते हैं? They use in fertilizers और TNT और nitric acid बनाने में and explosives के लिए use होता है. अच्छा, anyways, for this reaction, which row gives a true statement together with the correct reason? The nitrogen and hydrogen are mixed in the ratio 1:3. और फिर वो कह रहे हैं, the formula of ammonia is NH3. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, kind of looks fine. Probably nothing wrong with this. ठीक है, next one, the pressure is used is approximately 200. A high pressure is needed to produce a good yield of ammonia. पहले तो बताओ कि if I use a high pressure कौन सी साइड को फेवर करता है? less gas, ठीक है. तो less gas forward side पे ना, less gas, so it's going to shift to the forward. तो obviously yield वाली बात जो है, that makes sense. ठीक है, that makes the pressure used is approximately 200 atmospheres, so it gives a good yield. ठीक है, that's fine. फिर next one, the temperature used is approximately 450. That's also fine. A higher temperature is needed to produce a good yield of ammonia. ये मैंने कहा कि it's an exothermic reaction, right? वो उसने enthalpy change दी हुई है. The forward exo है. When would an exothermic reaction be favored? Lower temperature or higher temperature? ठीक है, it's going to be favored at a lower temperature. तो ये वाली स्टेटमेंट गलत है. मतलब ये तो ठीक है, ये वाला पार्ट ठीक है, but the next reasoning is wrong. कि higher temperature is going to, it's not going to produce a good yield, it's going to produce a bad yield, क्योंकि higher temperature जो होता है वो endothermic को favor करता है, it doesn't favor the exothermic. And the last one, फिर last one भी probably गलत ही होगा. Vanadium oxide is used as a catalyst. That's not used as a catalyst. Fe is used as a catalyst. ठीक है, that's also wrong. So A is the answer for this. अच्छा, उसके बाद which uses for sulfuric acid are correct? It's used as a bleach in the manufacture of wood pulp for paper, as a food preservative in tinned foods, as a raw material in the manufacture of detergents, as a fertilizer. कौन सी statement correct है?
Third one only.
अच्छा, the third one, as a raw material manufacture of detergents. ठीक है. 1 or 2 क्यों नहीं correct?
Because it's sulfur dioxide.
ठीक है, ये दोनों सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड की होती हैं, not for sulfuric acid. So 3 only, 3 बचता है. फिर 1 2 निकाल दो तो पहले 3 ऑप्शंस तो चले जाते हैं, तो थर्ड बचता है खाली. So the atomic number of element X is 12. What is 12 किसका होता है? Mg का होता है. ठीक है, Mg is 12. तो what is the formula of the chloride of X? तो Mg group 2 में होता है.
C.
So it's going to be C. ठीक है, it's going to be, because Mg is going to be 2 plus and Cl is group 7, so that's -1. So MgCl2 होगा. So C is the correct one. So then the next one, 3 elements दिए हुए. The atoms all have more neutrons than protons, and the atoms all have more neutrons than protons. देखना पड़ेगा. Calcium is 20. Calcium के लिए गलत हो गया. Calcium is 20. potassium is 19, and you have sodium, which is 11. Calcium, the number of protons and number of neutrons are exactly the same. You get 20, or 40 minus 20 is also 20. So their atoms have more neutrons than protons. That's wrong. It doesn't apply to calcium. Their ions all have 8 electrons in the outer shell, which is not correct. Okay, potassium is 28 and 2881. This is 281. Calcium is 2882. So that's wrong. अच्छा, they all sink when added to water. इनमें से कौन से sink नहीं करेंगे? कौन से metals
Calcium.
होते हैं? हाँ?
Only
Group
calcium.
नहीं, potassium and sodium, group 1 metals, they don't sink. They have low density. Calcium will sink. अच्छा, उसके बाद they all deposited at the positive electrode, तो positive पे ही जाएंगे. नहीं, they all deposited at the positive when they molten. नहीं, तुमने सारी गलत कर ली है.
So it's option B. Their ions have 8 electrons.
अच्छा, sorry, ions थे. ये आखिरी भी गलत है. They all get deposited at the positive electrode. They don't get attracted to the positive electrode. B गलत है क्योंकि हमने इसको overlook किया था. Ions की वो बात कर रहा था. तो ions are going to have 8 electrons. Which statement about transition elements is correct? Remember, 5 properties तो वैसे ही पता होनी चाहिए. क्या क्या वो 5 properties होती हैं कि they form current compounds? उसके अलावा बताओ क्या क्या होता है.
Variable oxidation states.
ठीक है, that's 2, 3 more.
Intercatalyst.
ठीक है, 3 हो गए, 2 रह गए अब.
They form colored solutions.
नहीं, वो तो हो गया. 2 और जो है वो हाई डेंसिटी होती है. दे हैव हाई मेल्टिंग एंड बॉइलिंग पॉइंट्स. ठीक है, सो their soluble salts are colored. ठीक है, that's fine. They're all in the same group of the periodic table. They're not even in the inner group. ठीक है, they are non-metals with नहीं, they're all in the same group. Which statement of transition elements is correct? नहीं, the first correct है ना. First ही है ना. हमने first क्यों ignore किया? So the first one is correct. Achha, next is 3 different elements react by losing electrons. The ions formed all have electronic configuration to it. Which statement about these elements is correct? So they're all in the same. They're all in the same group. Achha, वो कह रहे 3 different elements react by losing electrons. Remember, if they're losing electrons, they're metals. So they're either in group 1, 2, or 3. Okay, but not necessarily in the same group. Why would they be in the same group? Mg would be in group 2. Sodium would also form the same electronic configuration. So no, I mean, not necessarily. They should be. They can be in different groups. They're in the same period. That makes sense. ठीक है. क्योंकि अगर आप, if you're talking about sodium and you're talking about Mg, and what comes after Mg, you're talking about Al, right? So, like if you have a periodic table over here, so Na would lose 1 electrons to 2, 8 हो जाएगा. ये 2 electrons, 3 electrons, but they would be in the same period. ठीक है, so that statement is going to make sense. Okay, they are in the same period. Their noble gases, no, and their transition elements. इस period के अंदर transition elements होते ही नहीं है, क्योंकि Na, Mg, and Al. In the third period, there are no transition elements. Transition elements, they start from the fourth period. अच्छा, वापस question 30. Metal M is displaced from aqueous M nitrate by copper. So which statement about metal M and its compounds is correct? So metal M is displaced from by copper. That means its M is less reactive than copper. Now copper itself is very unreactive. But since copper is displacing it, that means copper is more reactive than M. So which statement about metal M and its compound is correct? So M is very unreactive. So M carbonate is stable when heated. No, it's not stable. ठीक है, remember that. जो reactive metals के carbonates होते हैं ना, they're the ones that are stable. I mean, it's very hard to decompose sodium carbonate, right? But it's very easy to decompose copper carbonate. ठीक है, the unreactive elements, they don't like to form they don't like to form compounds, so they decompose very easily. So this one is wrong. An oxide is reduced to M by heating with carbon. That is true. क्योंकि reactivity C's में ठीक है, where's the reactivity C's? Data sheet में होगी. अच्छा, now since it's less reactive, carbon is over here. ठीक है, you can see the reactivity C's over here. Carbon is kind of pretty high. Aluminium के नीचे आता है, so it's pretty high in the reactivity C's. So the unreactive metal would be reduced. Okay, if I have carbon and a metal oxide of M, carbon is more reactive, so carbon is going to take away the oxidants, और M अकेला रह जाएगा. ठीक है, so it's going to be B. B is correct. M reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid. Remember कि reactivity C's के अंदर, if you open the reactivity C's, H से नीचे जो metals होते हैं ना, they don't really react with dilute acids. Remember dilute acids. They can possibly react with concentrated acids, like gold can be dissolved in very concentrated acid, but not with dilute acids. H से नीचे वाले जो elements है ना, platinum etc., they don't react with dilute acids. So M reduces zinc oxide to zinc. That's not possible because M is very unreactive. So B is the only option that's correct. ठीक है? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So which statement about some of the gases present in air is correct? So dry air contains 78% of oxygen. That is wrong. क्या होता है 78%?
Nitrogen.
As a methane is produced by the incomplete combustion of fossil fuels. That's also wrong because carbon monoxide is produced, which causes choking. Sulfur dioxide is released by volcanoes. That is true. Volcanic activity में sulfur dioxide is produced. Noble gases make up 1%, just 1%. ठीक है, not more than that. तो ये भी गलत है. अच्छा, which treatment process is used to disinfect water? Disinfect. क्या डालते हैं इनमें से?
Chlorination.
ठीक है, that's going to be chlorination. Remember कि टेस्ट किस तरह improve करते हैं? टेस्ट improve करने के लिए क्या करते हैं?
Carbon.
ठीक है, add carbon और charcoal. उसमें फिर salts किस तरह remove होते हैं? That's
Desalination.
ठीक है, desalination और filtration, large particles, sand वगैरह. ये चारों process होते हैं. ठीक है, remember this कि water को purify किस तरह करते हैं. And you start off with this one. The first one is this one. Filter it. Desalination is usually not required, but if you're living near a sea, then desalination is must. अब फिर chlorine bacteria मारने के लिए, and carbon is added to improve taste. A molecule of Q has 3 C single bond C bonds and 10 CH bonds. It has no. Which statement about Q is correct? So correct. 3 C bonds है. So how many C's do you have? You have 4 C's. ठीक है, that's the only way you're going to have. That's the only way you're going to have 3 C bonds. वो कह रहे हैं कि 10 CH bonds है. तो start making 10 CH. That's 1, 2, 3. सारे H लगा दो. So that's 5, and we can have 5 more. So that's your molecule. Which homologous series is this?
Alkane.
ठीक है, this is an alkane, and alkanes don't usually undergo a lot of reactions except for one, which is इन सारों में से कौन सा होगा?
Substitution.
Substitution.
ठीक है, substitution. That's the only one over UV light के अंदर ना substitution होती है. But Cl add करता है Cl2. Any of the hydrogens over here could be substituted by Cl. One of them or all of them, ठीक है, any number of hydrogens could be substituted. बाकी सारे गलत हैं. It has 3 isomers. It doesn't have 3 isomers. The only isomer that you could make up is one more, which is कि 3 carbon atoms line में लगाओ and 1 carbon atom. So that's the only isomer, so that it has just one isomer. instead of having all the carbon atoms in a straight line, you can have it in a branched manner. तो 3 isomers वाली बात कर रहे थे. अच्छा, which organic compound requires the least number of moles of oxygen for the complete combustion of 1 mole of the compound? Now, this one is a very lengthy question. के वो कह रहे हैं least number of oxygens. अब बैठ के equation बनानी पड़ेगी for everyone. C4H8 reacted with O2. So you're going to produce CO2 and H2, and you can balance it out. If you try and balance this, what do you get? Okay, 4 carbons, so there would be 4 carbon dioxide molecules, and there are 8 hydrogens, so that's 4 H2O molecules, so that's 8 plus 4, that's 12, so 6 O2. अच्छा, तो इसको तो 6 O2 चाहिए. Now, one way you can actually do this is कि they're going to produce carbon dioxide and H2O always. C3H8 है. Now, C3H8 is going, well, it has fewer carbons and fewer hydrogens. तो ये तो गलत हो गया. मतलब C3H8, because it has fewer carbons, it's going to take up less oxygen. ये clear है? क्योंकि carbon dioxide कम बनेगा ना, C3H8 होगा, so there would be just 3 carbon dioxide molecules. अच्छा, फिर there is this is C3H8 and O. ठीक है, इस H को इसका combine कर लो. तो इसकी ऑक्सीजन की रिक्वायरमेंट और भी कम होगी. Why? Because it already has an oxygen. तो उसको बाहर से ऑक्सीजन थोड़े कम चाहिए होंगे. And this one is again, this one is C4H8. So my hunch is A. लेकिन इन दोनों को बैठ के ना इक्वेशन बना लो. इक्वेशन तो वही बनेगी कि it's going to be O2 and they would react to produce CO2 and H2O. So let's try and balance this. So there's going to be 3 CO2s and there's going to be 4 H2Os and there's going to be क्या होगा 3 2 6 6 4 10. तो यहाँ पे 4.5 होगा क्योंकि you need 9 oxygens and there's one already there. तो और इसका भी कर लो, लास्ट का भी कर लो. ठीक है, ये खुद ही बैलेंस कर लेना. Every time the equation is going to be the same. बल्कि कर लेते हैं C3H7COH plus O2, it reacts to produce CO2 and H2O. So there's 4 CO2s. Remember, there's 3 C's and there's another C. And there's 8 hydrogens, so there's going to be 4 H2Os. Now count the oxygens. That's 4 2 is 8. 8 plus 4, that's 12. So there are 2 already here. So you just need 10 oxygens. So 5 O2. So A is the correct answer. For this particular question. Next one. Which reaction is an addition reaction? Now remember, addition reactions, alkenes ke hote hain. Whenever you have an alkene, whenever you see an alkene, alkene ke reactions jo hote hain na, balki पढ़ लेते हैं quickly कि क्या क्या reactions होते हैं alkenes के. Just इधर खोल लेते हैं. अच्छा, now alkenes undergo addition reactions. Every time you have an alkene, alkenes are the ones with double bonds. You can see them on the screen. So they undergo addition reactions. Unka ye jo double bond hota hai, things get added to it. So bromination is one. If you reacted with bromine, then the double bond would break and it would turn into a single bond. And bromines will get added to it. Room temperature pe reaction hota hai. This reaction is known as bromination. Or you can also do this with chlorine as well. And there has to be absence of light. This reaction, the importance of this reaction is, well, if you pick any molecule and it has a double bond, the double bond is going to react with it. It's going to turn into a single bond and BRs are going to get added to it. So the test for identifying unsaturated molecules, alkenes, red brown Br2 gets decolorized, ठीक है? और फिर एक हाइड्रोजनेशन है, वो कहाँ पे यूज होता है कि again you have a double bond, hydrogens now get added to the double bond, ठीक है? वो single bond में change होता है and two hydrogens get added to it. It's used in manufacture of margarine. You have oils which are unsaturated. That means that they have double bonds. So on those double bonds, hydrogens get added, and the molecule becomes saturated. It becomes single bonds, all single bonds. So because of the increase in size or the slight increase in size, the substance becomes more viscous. It becomes less flammable, and it has a higher melting and boiling points. ठीक है? तो margarine जो होता है वो thick होता है. This one is like oil, sorry, liquid oil. और फिर एक hydration है, which is कि H and OH are going to get added to it. खास तौर पे अगर आप water add करोगे under these conditions. अच्छा, अब कहाँ पे पेपर? तो addition reaction is for alkene. So making ethene and hydrogen from butane, that's not an addition reaction. Manufacture of margarine from vegetable oil, C is correct. That's an example of an addition reaction. ठीक है, ये clear है सारों को?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's the next one. Is alcohols getting oxidized. तो क्या ethanol को oxygen के साथ react करो ना तो it gets oxidized to carboxylic acid. That's oxidation. तो वो क्या है? Glucose को ferment करो, you get ethanol, ठीक है? तो which row is correct? Molecular formula of carboxylic acid in 1. Ethanol को oxidize करोगे ना, you'll get ethanoic acid. Ethanoic acid is, you can either use the general formula, ठीक है? Ethanoic acid is going to be कि eth means 2 carbons. Remember, general formula में n की value जो है ना वो एक कम लेनी है. That's going to be taken as 1. So the formula is going to be C1. H would become 2 plus 2 into 1 plus 1, that's 3, and COOH. ठीक है? So it's either going to be C or A. Or you can draw the molecule. That's what a carboxylic acid is, and there's going to be 3 hydrogens over here. So a catalyst is needed. Which one requires a catalyst? First one, second one?
Second one.
और fermentation में कौन सा catalyst use होता है?
Yeast.
Yeast.
ठीक है, yeast is used as a biological catalyst. ठीक है, it's an enzyme. Oxidation के अंदर you don't need a catalyst. What you need is an oxidizing agent like KMnO4 or K2Cr2O7, and you reflux with heat with reflux. अच्छा, what's the empirical formula of ethanoic acid? तो अभी वो बनाया हुआ था formula. तो it's C2H4 and O2. मतलब इन सारों को combine करो ना. Empirical formula is the simplest ratio, so it's going to be C1H2 and O1. So A, that's going to be your answer. अच्छा, फिर which structure represents propyl methanoate? Now that's an ester, and how do you draw an ester? Ester always has this thing. और फिर propyl means 3 carbon atoms. Meth means 1 carbon atom. So one side has 3 carbon atoms, the other side has 1 carbon atom. Now, propyl side is the alcohol side, is the single O side. That's the side where you're going to have 3 carbon atoms, and the other side is going to have 1 carbon atom, which it already does. So this is propyl methanoate. And it's a match कर लो कि कौन सा molecule, which molecule looks like this? I think it's B. B is the inverted version of this, like the flipped version of this. CH3, I mean, these are all the C's, single O, and then there's a serial bond O and H. Okay, so it's going to be B. अगला है कि you're doing polymerization, and this is a PVC molecule. ठीक है, we're doing polymerization, जो कि यहाँ पे मैं शो कर देता हूँ कि what happens in polymers, you have monomers which kind of link up and they join up and they form this polymer. Addition polymerization में होता है कि you have double bonds, lots of monomers, and the double bonds addition reaction होता है. The double bonds go away from the middle and the carbon atoms they link up. और इसके अंदर you have to be careful कि if you take any random alkene, तो the first thing is you have to draw it in the correct manner. कि डबल बॉन्ड के ना राइट और लेफ्ट पे कुछ नहीं होना चाहिए. So double bond in the middle, two H's connected to it. So there would be two H's connected to it, but not on the right side. ठीक है, एक को ऊपर ले जाओ and one of them bring it down. And इस side पे there's going to be H and CH3. So there's H and CH3. Anyways, these are your monomers and they're going to link up. ठीक है, तो ये सारे आपके इसमें one of them is PVC, which is used in pipes, tiles, windows. तो PVC में this is the monomer. So the question is, what is the monomer? What you're going to do is you're going to take out the repeat unit. कि जी ये चीज जो है ना वो बार बार repeat हो रही है. So it's this thing. That's being repeated over and over again. उसको वापस monomer में convert कर दो. Get rid of the linkages and bring the double bond back. So that's your monomer. तो कौन सा molecule इससे मिलता?
C.
ठीक है, so C is your answer. The last one is toluene is a man-made fiber is used to make clothing, which row is correctly described as which row correctly describes how toluene is manufactured. तो toluene क्या होता है? Toluene is a polyester. एक सेकंड, आपका कहाँ पे है? Okay, how is it manufactured? तो पहले तो ये सारा कंडेंसेशन polymers. एक सेकंड. तो ये सारा आपने किया हुआ है पहले. तो इसमें बिल्कुल एंड में we did condensation polymers.
Sir, can you send the link of the board?
इसका मैं करता हूँ.
Yes.
अच्छा, ये बिल्कुल एंड के ऊपर पॉलीएमाइड्स, पॉलीएस्टर्स और इसका मैं लिंक भेजा. ठीक है. अच्छा, कंडेंसेशन पॉलीमर्स. तो कंडेंसेशन पॉलीमर्स में द फर्स्ट वन इज पॉलीएस्टर्स, जिसमें टेरिलीन आता है. ठीक है, और फैट्स आर आल्सो अ टाइप ऑफ पॉली. तो टेरिलीन में क्या होता है? यू हैव डायोल्स एंड यू हैव डाइकार्बोक्सिलिक एसिड्स. यू बेसिकली हैव अ मॉलिक्यूल that has alcohol groups on both sides and a molecule that has carboxylic acid groups on both sides. और वो फिर रिपीट यूनिट्स, ठीक है, बार बार रिपीट हो रहे होंगे. तो H और OH बीच में से रिमूव होता रहता है and they start forming these ester links. ठीक है, इसका OH जाता है, इसका H जाता है and they join up. So they have these ester links repeatedly. तो ये एग्जांपल दिया हुआ था मॉलिक्यूल का. फिर पॉलीएमाइड्स में होता है you have dicarboxylic acids and diamines. तो और बार बार रिपीट हो रहा होता है. At the end of the day you get the same thing. H and OH are removed and they link up. ठीक है, और प्रोटीन्स जो होते थे they were made from amino acids. कि प्रोटीन्स के अंदर you had a monomer which was an amino acid. एक साइड पे there's a carboxylic acid, on the other side you have NH2. तो and they keep on repeating endlessly. HOH बीच में से रिमूव होता रहता है and they start forming these amide links. And then you had complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates were कि you had sugars, glucose as the monomer, and they had OH groups on both sides. The H and OH would get removed. The only thing that would be left in the middle would be an O. ठीक है, ये वाला याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है. और फिर सोप्स वगैरह का. ठीक है, so you have to remember this कि So the question was, how was sterling made? The starting materials, it should be an acid and an alcohol. That's how esters are going to be produced, and it's going to be a condensation polymer. So the answer is going to be B. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So एक second में ये link board करा सबको भेज दिया ठीक है चलो ठीक है we're done with this paper सही है
Okay.
चले okay take care Allah Hafiz
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.